Hi everyone, today is Tuesday, April 28th, and today's cartoon has to do with cows. In the first picture you see the cows standing upright, standing on their two hind legs and talking and chit-chatting with each other. And you see one cow over there who's looking out. He's leaning against the fence and he sees a car coming, so he yells, "Car!" So all of the cows get down on their four legs and chew grass and act like cows while the car is passing by. And as soon as the car passes by, they all get up on their hind legs again and chit-chat like humans do. So I thought that was a cute cartoon. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do today is a reading challenge on page 37. And basically what it is you have four different texts about what you think these items would have cost at an auction. And what they're saying is they want you to read the descriptions of the items, then take a guess. Which item do you think sold for $3.5 million and which one do you think sold for $38,000? And the introduction that they gave you, they talked about a map that this guy named Ed Jones found at a thrift shop, and he paid $3 for it. And then it turned out to be worth $19.5 million. But they don't give you they don't tell you the story about it. So I looked up the story for you. I couldn't find the map, but I could find the story of Ed Jones and his map. So I'm going to share that with you. Maybe I'm going to share that with you. I'm wondering, do you see that same thing? Okay. Okay, there we go. So here's the story. And I just want you to read along with me. Just try to keep up. I'm not going to pause and have you echo this. This is just a cold reading. I want you to follow me and see how much you can connect with yourself. After I am done reading, you can pause it or stop it there and translate what you need to, but I think you will be surprised, pleasantly surprised at how much you can pick up just with the cold reading, just with you and I reading it together for the first time. Okay, so the name of this story is A Real Bargain. A few years ago, Ed Jones was shopping at a thrift store in Indianapolis, Indiana. He walked past the used clothing and stopped at the used books. He looked at the books and then at some old dishes. Mr. Jones was looking for something that might be valuable. If he found something valuable, he would buy it cheaply and then resell it, perhaps to an antique dealer. But today, Mr. Jones didn't see anything he wanted, so he started walking toward the door. Then something caught his eye. Leaning against the wall, there was a large cardboard map. Mr. Jones walked over for a closer look. The map was covered with dust, so Mr. Jones wiped it with his handkerchief. Under the dust was a colored map of Paris. It looked old. On the back of the map, someone had written the price, $3. Mr. Jones was quite certain that the map was worth more than $3, so he bought it. He thought he could probably sell it for $40. Later at home, Mr. Jones looked more closely at the map. He decided it might be very old. Maybe it was worth even more than $40. The next day, Mr. Jones took the map to a geography professor at a nearby university. The professor was a map expert. After looking at the map for a few minutes, he became very excited. "I've read about this map," he exclaimed. Then he told Mr. Jones what he knew. In 1671, the King of France, Louis XIV, asked a cartographer to make a map of Paris. The cartographer worked on the map for 4 years. The map he drew was beautiful. It was not just a map, but a work of art as well. Then he carefully colored one of the copies using blue for rivers, green for trees, and brown for buildings. The professor said that one black and white copy of the map was in the British Museum in London, and another was in the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris. I think, the professor told Mr. Jones, that you've just found the color copy of the map in a thrift store in Indianapolis. The professor suggested that Mr. Jones take the map to New York City. Experts there could tell Mr. Jones if the professor was right. The New York experts said the professor was right. He scrolls up a little bit. They told Mr. Jones that he had the only color copy of the map and that it was extremely valuable. How much do you think it's worth? Mr. Jones asked the experts. Millions, they replied. It's impossible to say exactly how much the map is worth. It's worth whatever someone is willing to pay for it. Soon, Mr. Jones found how much people were willing to pay for the map. Someone offered him $10 million. Then someone else immediately offered him $12 million. The most recent offer was $19.5 million. Mr. Jones hasn't decided whether he will sell his, Mr. Jones hasn't decided whether he will sell his $3 map at that price or wait for a higher offer. He is thinking it over. But how in the world did this map find its way to a thrift store in Indianapolis? Here is what some experts think. The map was probably in a museum or in the home of a wealthy family in France. Then a thief stole it, perhaps during the confusion of World War I or World War II. The thief sold the map to an antique dealer in France. The French antique dealer, not knowing how valuable the map was, sold it to an antique dealer in Indianapolis. That antique dealer, who also did not know its value, gave it to a neighbor. For 10 years, the map hung on a wall in the neighbor's house. Then the neighbor got tired of it and sold it to the thrift store. The map sat in the thrift store for months. Finally, Mr. Jones discovered it. When Mr. Jones went shopping at the thrift store, he was looking for a bargain. He wanted to find something that was worth more than the price he paid. He paid $3 for the map, and it's worth at least $19.5 million. Now that's a bargain. Okay, but could you imagine how any of them would have felt, the antique dealer or the neighbor who just got tired of it on their wall and sold it to the thrift store? Oh, but that's a great story. Okay, on this first article in here, it's a condolence letter. And to give condolences to someone is to mean that you are telling them you're sorry that someone has died. You know, to give condolences means that you're expressing your sorrow or grief for them, that you are sorry that they are going through this ordeal. And this first one was a handwritten letter by Abraham Lincoln, and it is considered to be one of the greatest condolences letter ever written. And it's very, 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 very hard to see this copy. So I thought that I would show you the original copy, but then also a typed transcript of it, because that reading is very, very hard to read. You know, that was done more than 200 years ago, so it's a little bit hard to read. Well, not more than 200 years ago, about 150. Okay, so let me find. This one, scroll down to the next story. So this is the original letter. And it's written to a young, I think she is 13 years old. And Abraham Lincoln is writing to this girl. Okay, so President Abraham Lincoln wrote this touching letter of condolence to the daughter of his longtime friend, William McCulloch. During Lincoln's law circuit days, McCulloch was sheriff and clerk of the McLean County Circuit Court in Bloomington, Illinois. Early in the Civil War, he helped organize the 4th Illinois Cavalry, which he served as lieutenant colonel. On December 5th, 1862, he was killed during a night charge near Coffeyville, Mississippi. When he wrote this letter, Lincoln appeared to be recalling his own grief as a 9-year-old child when his mother died after a short illness in 1818. Even more painful was the recent death of his much-loved 11-year-old son, Willie, on February 20th, 1862. So, when was this letter written? December 23rd, 1862. So about 8 months after his son died. Okay, and it says, Dear Fanny, it is with deep grief that I learn of the death of your kind and brave father, and especially that it is affecting your young heart beyond what is common in such cases. In this sad world of ours, sorrow comes to all, and to the young, it comes with bitterest agony because it takes them unawares. The older have learned to ever expect it. I am anxious to afford some alleviation of your present distress. Perfect relief is not possible except with time. You cannot now realize that you will ever feel better. Is not this so? And yet it is a mistake. You are sure to be happy again. To know this, which is certainly true, will make you some less miserable now. I've had experience enough to know what I say, and you need only to believe it to feel better at once. The memory of your dear father, instead of an agony, will yet be a sad, sweet feeling in your heart, of a purer and holier sort than you have known before. Please present my kind regards to your afflicted mother, your sincere friend, Abraham Lincoln. Okay, so, sorry, my nose itches. So what do you think that letter sold for? I would give, if I had it, I would give $1 million for that letter. That's a beautiful letter, and to think that it was written by Abraham Lincoln is really cool. Okay, the next painting is by Andy Warhol, and he painted, he started a movement called pop art, and it's short for popular art because he took paintings, he drew paintings of just the most common things. And one of them, he drew a lot of paintings of Campbell's soup cans. So I'm going to show you a few of his paintings to go along with this. Oh, my nose itches. Okay, so okay, so this first one you've got, let me see, I'm going to use my little highlighter for this. I can get it going. Okay, so this first one, you have a painting of a can of beef noodle soup. And then the second one is a painting of tomato soup. I'll have to stop this, sorry. I can't scroll down. Let me get the rest of them. And then this is just one painting, this next one, of beef, black bean, chicken noodle, consomme, cream of mushroom, onion, pepper pot, which I don't think they even make anymore. I don't recall ever seeing pepper pot. Tomato, vegetable, and green pea soup. I don't know. I may not be up to date on my soups, but I don't believe that I see consomme or green pea, and for sure the pepper pot, and maybe black bean. I don't think they make black bean either. Okay, and then here's one of a Coca-Cola bottle, and then one of Ingrid Bergman. She was a famous movie star in Casablanca. This one right here is probably his most famous one, and it's of Marilyn Monroe. And then over here is like a triple picture of Elvis Presley. Okay, so that's it for the Andy Warhol paintings. Okay, on the next page, you see the Steiff teddy bear, and this is a picture of Margaret Steiff, and she had polio, just like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and so she was in a wheelchair. Okay, so I'm going to stop it there so that I can read these articles to you, and you remember you can follow along with me in your book. So we're going back to the Andy Warhol painting. The painter Andy Warhol was one of the most influential artists of the 20th century. He died in New York City in 1987. Warhol's style of painting is called pop art because he took popular, common images and transformed them into art. He painted Coca-Cola bottles, US $1 bills, the faces of movie stars, and soup cans. He is perhaps most famous for his soup can paintings, which he completed in 1961 and 1962. There are 32 paintings of soup cans, and each painting is slightly different. This painting is of Campbell's pepper pot soup. Okay, so how much would you pay for a painting of a Campbell's soup can of pepper pot soup? Good question. Okay, and then the next one is on the Steiff teddy bear, that picture of Margaret Steiff. Okay. Margaret Steiff, a German woman, created the first teddy bear over 100 years ago. Ms. Steiff wasn't originally a toy maker. She was a seamstress who fell into toy making by chance. Marguerite had polio as an infant, and she was never able to walk. So when she became a young woman, she needed to find work she could do while sitting in a wheelchair. She decided to become a seamstress. By the time she was 25, I lost my place. Marguerite was earning a good living making dresses for wealthy women. One day, Marguerite was looking through a fashion magazine and spotted a pattern for a toy elephant made of cloth. She made several elephants and gave them to friends as gifts. Her friends loved their toy elephants and encouraged Marguerite to make more cloth toys. She began making little bears, dogs, and donkeys and selling them in addition to selling dresses. By 1987, Marguerite was selling more toys than dresses. In fact, she was selling so many toys, she had to hire 40 women to help her sew them. The most popular toys were the cloth bears. In the United States, the bears were an instant hit. They were called teddy bears after President Theodore Roosevelt, whose nickname was Teddy. The Steiff Company is still in business in Germany. New Steiff teddy bears are quite expensive because they are made by hand. It is the old teddy bears, however, the ones that Marguerite Steiff and her 40 employees made, that are really valuable. This Steiff teddy bear, which was made in 1905, is in almost perfect condition. So how much do you think that this 1905 Steiff teddy bear is worth? Okay, the last one is on Princess Diana. When she came to the United States when Reagan was president, she wore this beautiful dress, and I'm going to show it to you. Let's scroll down some. Okay, so it's like a navy blue velvet dress, and she had that pearl choker with that big huge sapphire in the middle of it, and she's dancing with a much younger John Travolta. So anyway, this was like a really famous picture of Princess Diana. And now let's read the article that goes with it. In 1997, Diana, Princess of Wales, decided to auction some of her evening dresses and to give the money to charity. The auction was held at Christie's Auction House in New York City in June, 2 months before her death. On the evening of the auction house was packed with people, and 50 telephone lines connected the auction to bidders all over the world. That evening, this blue velvet evening gown brought the highest price. Princess Diana had worn the dress to a dinner at the White House with US President Ronald Reagan and his wife Nancy. Princess Diana was a fan of Hollywood movies, so the Reagans invited several movie stars to the dinner. After dinner, Diana danced with one of her favorite actors, John Travolta. The next morning, newspapers all over the world carried photos of Diana dancing in her blue velvet gown. Okay, and at the bottom of that, it says, check the answer key to see how much these items sold for. Okay, but guess what? You do not have that answer key. You only have those texts. So if you want to, you can stop this video right here and reread it and reread it until you're pretty comfortable with that. And then you decide which one sold for $3.5 million, which one sold for $38,000, and then make a guess on the other two items on how much they sold. You know, it's going to be somewhere between $38,000 and $3.5 million. Now, spoiler alert, I'm fixing to give you the answer. So if you want to work this out by yourself, then you've got like 1 or 2 seconds to turn this off so that because I'm fixing to scroll down and give you the answers. So here we go. One more page. Here it comes. Okay, so the Andy Warhol painting is the one that sold for $3.5 million of the pepper pot soup can. The Lincoln letter, which I would honestly have paid for more if I had that much money, sold for $442,500. Diana's blue velvet gown sold for $200,000, and the Steiff teddy bear sold for $38,000. All right, so how did you do? I could have never guessed. Well, I think I probably could have guessed the Andy Warhol painting, but the rest of them, I wouldn't have known. Okay, so we're gonna break this video right here. And then the next video, we will look at the vocabulary for this week. But just so you can read this, I just want you to read it and look through, translate the stuff that you need to, but I want you to be very familiar with this text. Okay, so we will stop there, and I will see you in just a little bit.